Hello, and welcome to Crew Call, the Below the Line podcast by, for, and about the crew. Today's guest is a stunt rigger and co-owner of Action Factory. So hello, Joe Ross. Let's start from the top. When did you get started in the business?
I guess I got my SAG card in 2001. I was Taft-Hartley for commercial. It was for a Volvo truck commercial for the 18-wheeler trucks. And at the time, I was doing background trying to get my SAG vouchers because that was kind of how we would go about doing it. Getting your SAG card is that you would do background work. Eventually, you would get your SAG vouchers, which would make you eligible for SAG. Doing it that way would allow you to learn different positions within the film industry, what people did, what was expected of you. So you weren't so green once you did get your SAG card and getting into stunts. So in the process of doing that, I got Taft-Hartley, got a commercial, and was able to get my SAG card.
All right. And so from there, what was your background physically? Like, did you just, because you had to have some kind of experience for them to kind of move you into stunts. So what was your background?
I'm going to go back a little further. I was very active as a kid. I was always outside doing stuff. Either riding bikes was mostly one of my passions, so a lot of BMX riding, just a lot of running around, sports, playing tag, we did a lot of newspaper tag, which was we would just get a newspaper from somebody's lawn, and then we would chase each other on our bikes with the newspaper, and you would have to just throw it and hit somebody. So, the things that you do. But then it expanded into running on rooftops and jumping roof gaps and running over fences, and then using the school. I lived right across the street from actually two schools. And we would that was our playground. So we would play basically hide and go seek in these two schools, and we would chase each other through these two schools, and that's where my training ground was for doing this. But then as growing up, you get a little older. One of my first jobs was construction because my dad was an engineer, so he had his own construction company. So I started off at a young age of learning construction and how buildings were built and how structures were done and how things were put together, which later helps me with rigging. But at the time, it was just like, I don't want to do this stupid. Why am I digging ditches? Why am I, building, why am I building houses? And why am I doing seismic retrofit of buildings in downtown LA? This is dumb. I don't want to do this. But it actually helps me out a lot for what I do now.
And explain to everyone what you do now.
I am part owner of a action resource company called Action Factory. Within this company, we do rigging, coordinating, we do manufacturing. We are trying to fill the gap that is or has been in the industry over, the course that it's been started. Because basically, we've always, as stunt performers, we've always been adapting either whether it be pads or gear or equipment from other venues. Like, you take a football girdle and you use that to do a car hit, or, you're using pads that were designed for something else, or you're using race car outfits that were designed to protect race car drivers and you're lighting yourself on fire with them. Mm-hmm. So we were always using something that wasn't really designed for us and trying to make it work. And then myself and my partners, over the years, we decided, let's start making stuff that's designed for stunt professionals that works very well for stunt professionals, designed specifically for us to keep us safe. With that, it also goes into the rigging aspect of, hey, how can we make this better and easier and safer? So that's one of the things that we try to do.
And of course, having experience in stunts and other sports and stuff, how your body moves, how you need to fall. So it's easier for you to come up with these ideas and technologies to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first started, for the performance-wise, go back to the performance question, I started doing a lot of professional wrestling because myself and a lot of my friends were very big on WWF when we were younger. It was WWF, then it went to WCW and then WWE. So we were around when it was WWF at the time, and so we were big fans of professional wrestling, and so we did a lot of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So professional wrestling was one of the first things I did, and then from there, it spawned into doing circus stuff, and I took a tumbling course in college, which helped me out, and then my first actual performance job was working at Disneyland in the parade department, and it was the Lion King parade. And I was a pole climbing bird for the Disney parade. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun and funny at the same time. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And then it went on to other shows, like in Magic Mountain. I did a show, Carnival du Futur, which was a combination between Blade Runner and Cirque du Soleil and a bunch of other stuff that was just kind of thrown together. And so it helped hone my skills. And then from there, you just do little bits and pieces here and there. I was still doing professional wrestling and some fighting, and you meet other people along the way, and you just kind of incorporate different skills. So I guess the more you know, the better off you are at being a performer for stunts.
Right. Now, are you doing it as much as you're doing the rigging, or do you enjoy the rigging more so than doing the actual performance?
Now I'm doing more of the rigging and the coordinating and the setting up and the manufacturing than I am performing. Most of the phone calls that come through are for setting it up, whether it be for setting up a fire burn or setting up a rig or coordinating a show.
So now I know that a big part of your company was you guys developing a better fire gel. Let's talk about the fire gel, the specifics of it, as far as like, what does it feel like when you're burning, and how does the gel not burn you and all that kind of stuff?
All right. Well, it's a hydrogel, and there's been a lot of hydrogels over the course of time, and there's different people who create their own hydrogels. The gel has been designed to work at room temperature, where the other gels you have to refrigerate and or freeze. And so you would have to, prep all your clothes, you put it in the refrigerator, you put it on ice, and when you get ready, you have to put these really freezing cold clothes on.
Ooh.
What makes it worse is that usually when you're doing a fire burn, it's really early in the morning or really late at night, because they like the sunset or the sunrise to make it look really nice.
Mm-hmm. So
it was very uncomfortable. So by the time they were ready to light you on fire, you're shaking, you're cold, you got tunnel vision, your lips are turning blue, so it's like and then when you get lit on fire, the temperature change between too hot and the freezing that you're feeling is very close. The feeling is very close. So sometimes you wouldn't be able to tell whether you were burning or freezing. So a lot of times you would end up with like a sunburn, because it's like you would get to that temperature where it just got a little bit too hot. So we felt that there's a safer way of doing stuff. And so the gel that we've created now doesn't have to be on ice, doesn't have to be refrigerated, it can be room temperature. Now, it doesn't mean that the gel still doesn't make you cold, because the gel itself is designed to pull heat out and distribute the heat. We designed a wardrobe setting so that it's able to protect us better, so that it all overlaps. So then that way you don't have that separation. So if you have to do a stair fall on fire and you're rolling down the stairs, you don't have to worry about your clothes coming apart and then fuel getting into that gap and then you getting burned in those areas. So that was something else that it's like, hey, well, what if this happens and what if this happens? So we designed some holes in our sleeves, so then that way you never lose the sleeve up your shirt. So when you're putting layers on, it's always there. We have built-in booties into the pants, so there's no ankle or foot separation at your ankles, where you might have some migration of fuel while you're on fire down into your sock area, and then you get burned around your ankles. So that's not going to happen anymore. Being that it's room temperature lets you stay in the gel a lot longer than if it was freezing. And the duration and the reset of our fire setup with our fire gel is a lot longer. We can do more burns consecutively without resetting the person with the old gel, because the old gel breaks down after it's been lit on fire, where ours still maintains integrity.
Now, how about the face?
There's different ways that you can protect your face. You can put gel on your face. There's different techniques while you're on fire. And this is the experience. It's like when you get more experience with the fire, you're able to do bigger and larger burns because you know how to keep yourself safe.
Okay.
Also, your fire team can fuel you in a certain way that will allow you to have safe zones while you're on fire. But that, like I said, those are all through the experience of your fire team and of the individual being on fire.
Mm-hmm.
You can use some of the gel to protect your soft areas like your ears and your nose and your eyes and that kind of stuff. But it's up to the individual that's on fire to keep themselves from being in that fire for too long. We also have a product that we don't sell. It's like what we call the skin burner, the naked burn gel.
Mm-hmm.
And that gel is very clear. You're able to put it directly on the skin. We were able to put fuel on top of that and then light the fuel on fire directly on the skin with just the gel in between as the barrier without any clothing. That is proprietary to our company. Comfortable to say nobody else has been able to perform at the level of what we are able to perform and look like what we have for that particular time. Now, that is not to be confused with our actual AF hydrogel because they are two different gels at a chemical level.
So you put fuel on top of the fire gel, and that's what sets it off. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, so we also have designed our own fuel, which we do not sell because it's a liability.
Mm-hmm.
But different fire teams will have different fuel mixtures. We have different fuel mixtures for different occasions. Like, if you're in a high wind situation,
mm-hmm.
you need a fuel that's going to be able to hold up to those winds.
Okay.
If they want something that's down and gritty, that how it produces a lot of smoke, we can change the fuel so you get a lot of black smoke out of it. The normal fuel that we use is a cooler burning fuel, and it's a little bit cleaner, so it doesn't produce a lot of smoke or off gas, so like black smoke or sooty smoke. And since we're doing a lot of the stuff indoors, that's really good. The fire marshals like that a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go to stunt rigging because that's different. So let's talk about stunt rigging, and let's talk about, first of all, for people that have never heard of that word or that title, let's explain what a stunt rigger does, and then tell me, kind of walk through your day as a stunt rigger.
So rigging film and television for stunts is that anytime that you fly an individual, human being, animal, anything that's alive, the stunt individual is involved in rigging that.
Okay.
So anytime anything aerial is done, you have a participant, a rigger. You have a stunt rigger. What we'll end up doing is, once again, you go back to the coordinator. Coordinator has a show that they're doing. It requires somebody to be, say, blasted back into a wall. So they have a team that they work with of riggers that they know that they can trust, that they'll call and be like, hey, we got this job that we're doing on this day. This is your call time.
Okay.
So we will prep for that job. So we'll pack the gear that we need, and then we'll also try to do a site inspection so we can go in and know what it is that we're rigging from. So a lot of if we were doing it in a sound stage, they have the perms, which is the wood structure of the roof. And so we'll go in, we'll see where the location is, what the set looks like, and what we're hanging off of, and where we can set up our station. Try to show up about half an hour early. There's a saying, half an hour early is on time is late, and late is fired. If you show up half an hour before your call, you're on time. And that goes across for like just doing stunts, falling down, whatever it is that you're doing. You try to set that. So then that way it gives you enough time to get there. Because in LA, we all know how traffic can change. So it's like it gives you enough time to get there, it gives you a breather, so that way you're not rushed. And then nobody has to panic for you that's hired you because you're there on time.
Great.
So once we have all our gear and you get there and you set up, you double check to make sure that nothing has been moved. Everything is supposed to be where it's at. There's a lot of times, when people are setting up for things, you have lighting, you have sound, you have flags that get put in the way to block light. And so there's a lot of stuff that gets moved and put in your way that wasn't there when you did the site inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make sure that whatever you're hanging from is rated to hang a person from and can handle the load that you're distributing on the system. So there's a lot of calculation and mathematics that needs to go into it, and there's a lot of knowledge about structures and how structures can be used and how they shouldn't be used, which is like a whole other conversation, which goes back to me working in construction and learning like how things are built and how things are put together and that kind of stuff, which has helped me now. So after you've tested everything, you know, it's like usually you get a test day or two. It depends on how big the rig and the gag is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on movies, sometimes you'll get a week, sometimes you'll get a couple days.
Okay.
On television shows, sometimes you go in, you rig, you test, and you shoot all in the same day. So it's a pretty tight schedule. And so the individuals that you have, you need to know that they're able to do the job that you're able to do.
Yeah.
And so it's very specific. And so it's like, that's why some teams usually work with the same guys over and over again, because they know how everybody works.
Mm-hmm.
And they know what is expected of them in that team, in that group. And it's always good to have a good group of guys. And then that way, when you go in, you know exactly what everybody's doing. You know exactly what needs to happen. And there's no communication loss, or there's no egos that are involved for the most part.
Now, do you have an influence on what goes on? Do you tell like the coordinator or director, you know, we think that this is going to work better, or do you just take their direction and just do what you can?
Most of the time, the stunt coordinator has talked with the directors about what it is that they're looking for, and so we go off of them, because they're the ones that are making the call. So it's the coordinator's decision, you know, on looks. Now, if they say, hey, you know, what can we change about this? Or I'm looking for this. Can we change something? Oh, yeah, if we did this, this would happen. Oh, that might look better. Let's try it. And then you try it.
We heard from you about your background, which is really great that you have like, you know, like architectural skills as far as like the math and building and understanding angles and all that stuff. What would you tell someone that's like, ooh, that sounds really cool. How could I get involved?
They would need to know the ratings of equipment that they're using. They would need to know a basic understanding of structures,
mm-hmm.
Beam structures, how things are put together, what you can and cannot hang on, you know, knowledge and trust, and how trust is designed and how trust is designed to be used.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe it or not, you know, a lot of people they hang things in properly off of trust. Trust is designed to work in a specific way. Sometimes it's not used in that specific way. It's used in other ways, which works because it's still within the safety factors, but it's not designed to work in that aspect. So if there was an accident for some reason and the trust failed, in those circumstances, when you know an engineer looked at it, like, well, you weren't using the truss to the specification,
mm-hmm.
you were at fault because you did not do it safely and in common practice for the use of the truss. So you got to be able to understand the mechanics of what it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a saying where it's like some people know enough just to be dangerous. You know, it's like just because you can tie a knot in a rope doesn't make you a rigger.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that learn, hey, I can tie a knot and I know how to hang a span set. Well, that's great, but it doesn't mean that you know or understand an entire working system and a rigging system. Because if you don't know structures and you don't know what to look for in a structure in a building, then your system that you've just built can be very unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
Because granted, yes, you're using rated carabiners, you're using rated shivs, you're using your span sets correctly. However, what you hung off of is not safe to be hung on, and that fails. Well, you failed at your system because you did not know what to look for. And so there's just a lot to know when it comes into rigging, and it's like there's different levels of riggers. You have a ground rigger. Your ground rigger needs to know their basic knots. They need to know the equipment that you're using. They need to know the names and how it's somewhat used. So then that way, when you drop a line to them from the grid, which would be your uprigger,
mm-hmm.
they would know what needs to be tied to your line, how to tie it to your line. So then that way, your uprigger can pull it up to you. Your uprigger needs to know, how to hang span sets, how to hang the shivs, how to run lines, what to look for when you're in a grid or on a beam. There's just a whole lot of stuff that you have to watch out for. And then you have your head rigger, who usually designs the system that you're hanging in that you're rigging, and they rely on the other individuals that are in that team to build it.
Now, do you think that you can do stunt rigging without actually having the experience of a stuntman? Is that possible, or do most stunt riggers start out as stuntmen because then they understand how to move, how to fall, how to use the equipment?
No, not necessarily, because rigging in itself is one area of expertise.
Okay.
Like if you're an expert at rigging and you come from another background, like if you do aerial rigging for circus and that kind of stuff, then you have an understanding of how to rig. So the rigger they need to know how to rig a system safely.
Okay.
If you're the lead rigger and you're trying to get somebody to do something and you don't understand the other aspect of it, like how to be on the line, then that is when it'd be good to know both sides of it.
So how would one get practical knowledge of it if they have no experience? Mr. Joe Ross.
It's a very good question. So in the stunt industry, it's people work in groups and teams, right? And so if they don't know you, most likely they're not going to let you in.
Okay.
If you know somebody who knows you and they try to get you in, those are your better options.
Okay.
So and you're going to be doing a lot of free stuff. You're going to have to show up for free. You're going to have because there's a pecking order, and it's like everybody's got somebody below them that they're bringing up underneath their group because they feel that they will be an asset at a time. But you have to put that time in to be able to get there.
Okay.
And then so even though it's like if you have the intelligence and you have common sense and you can see things and you can pick stuff up, then you're better off than a lot of people because you have common sense. Mm-hmm. So as you're building up in these groups, they will bring you in. They will allow you, hey, we're doing this project. You want to come in and learn. They're like, oh, yeah. So they come in, they lend a hand. You show them how to do stuff, show them how, what's safe, what's not safe. And they learn by doing. So they're donating their time to be taught how it is done in the field, what is expected of them and what to do. So over the course of time, then it's like, hey, we got this job, come on out. You're going to just run pads back and forth, and that's your job. Or you're going to clean pads and you're going to put gear away. And then that's going to be your first job for a while. It's like being an intern. You have to go get people coffee and that kind of stuff as an intern. But in this, it's like, hey, you got to put all the gear away. You got to check it. You got to make sure it's good because that's the starting point. It's like, you need to know what the gear is. You need to know how the gear is taken care of. You need to know when there's a problem with the gear. And the best way to do that is at the entry level and putting your hands on it and like, hey, this carabiner is not opening anymore correctly. It doesn't feel right. Look at it. Oh, good catch. I'm glad that you found that because that's what you need to be looking for when something starts hanging up. Mm-hmm. We can address that and say, hey, is there something that's just stuck in the gate or is the carabiner bad and doesn't want to close properly? And do we need to red tag it and get it out of the system? Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a type of pecking order where it's like, hey, if you want in with a group and you want to start learning, then you have to donate your time and you have to do the things that you're really not going to like to do. And that's, and then so you just build yourself that way. And so whether you're doing stunts or whether you're trying to do rigging or, whether you're trying to do set decorating or whatever it is, I think that's pretty much how it happens. Somebody takes you on, they try you out for a bit. If you make it past that trial period and everybody thinks that you're a good candidate, then they keep you on and they actually invest more time in you because that company is doing that. They're investing time in you because you are a good candidate for them and helping them grow as a company. Now,
the funny thing is that usually we ask a question to our guests about, have you seen, has the industry changed much since you started and what technologies have you developed? But the thing here is that you guys are the ones that developed technologies to change the industry and what you do, which is really quite cool. So I'm not going to ask you what that question because you guys actually changed it.
I can also elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, like from a standpoint of, yes, we are also developing and changing and trying to stay ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's also different avenues. Like motion capture has become huge over the course of time since I first started to now. So, you know, the computer age is much different than what we do physically with stunts, right?
Right.
So they've incorporated a way to take stunts and motion capture and then combine them together and film. So it's like now things are going towards the computer that we weren't able to do before. You know, we were part of the Daredevil thing that just popped out, and it was done through Blur Studios, and we came in and we rigged some stuff and we did some stuff, but it was all done motion capture. So yeah, we had some rigs and stuff that we did in there, but they did an entire car turnover scene with motion capture. What they're able to do with the computer is amazing, and that technology has changed, you know, since the 2 years ago that we did it till now. So there's a lot of those types of things that it's like, hey, you know, this great thing is coming out to make things a little bit different. And then, like, you know, in the camera world, the same thing happens. It's like they come up with this new invention for cameras, and then for lighting, it's like, hey, this lighting board came out, or these new lights came out with LED and green screen, and so I think every facet of the industry changes little bit by little bit by little bit because there's inventors out there that want to make it better for everyone. And producers love that because it's going to save them money and make them more money in the long run, which also hurts the stunt individual because if you can do things, you know, on the computer, then why do I need a whole team of stunt people? Because I can regenerate them. And that's very scary. And then with the new media that's out there now with, you know, YouTube and all of the YouTube channels and people becoming very popular, that also changes the industry. And so it, you know, we are seeing, you know, we're still on the beginning portion of how that's changing, but I think in the next couple of years, we're going to get a real glimpse of how it is changing and how it has changed the industry, because it's going to be around long enough that it will have it'll have a wedge that's now part of the film and television industry.
So what would you want to see differently? If you could change anything about what's going on, and we just talked a little bit about how it keeps on going forward and forward and forward. So what ultimately would you love to see differently, or you'd love to change?
I would love to see a stronger support system within the stunt community. I think the stunt community lacks in supporting each other. I don't think they understand how hard our forefathers had fought for what they have. And now a lot of what the first stunt people had fought for is dwindling, and it's blowing away like dust in the wind. You know, it's like they fought very hard to get, you know, when you fly to a location, you got paid for the day that you flew because you couldn't work on that day. You're working for them. Right. As well as, you know, you got a first class seat, you know, on a plane. Now, a lot of places are doing, your travel day is $75, which doesn't even really pay you for the food that you're on. And if they fly, you know, more than 6 people, you're in coach. So there's a lot of little things that have changed. And then a lot of these things are changing because individuals are allowing it to change, because they will take those jobs. They will do those things for less money. They will get themselves into a position where they don't really know what it is that they're doing because they just want the job. So there's a lot of green individuals that are undermining the system because they don't know that they're undermining the system. They just want the work. They just want the work, but they don't understand that, hey, when you do this, you are damaging your children's ability to do this job. Because when you grow up, all of the things that are here now are going to change because somebody else like you is going to do the same thing that you are doing. And when your kids grow up, you won't be able to make a living being a stunt professional because it would have changed so much.
Right. And I think that's true about a lot of different fields as well. When people are they're hungry and they're willing to do something for, lower the standard of what it usually is, it creates a problem across the board. And that happens with a lot of things, not just the entertainment industry, but a lot of different industries. When people do that, it just kind of ruins it for everyone else.
It's tough.
And that's it for Crew Call. If you'd like to support the podcast, remember to click the Amazon link on the Tappa website before you go shopping. It doesn't cost you anything, and Amazon gives us a little kickback. Everyone wins. And if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. Good or bad, we really appreciate the feedback. Thanks again to Joe for telling us about stunt rigging and Action Factory. Tune in next time for On-Set Data Integration Lead, Vicki Chan.